Welcome to the Big Change the Film interview series, and my name is Jason Cohen. I personally have lost over 120 pounds, and every week I chat with inspiring individuals who've also lost significant amounts of weight, hear their stories, and share some of that information with others. Including today's guest and myself, the total pounds lost is now up to 11,920 pounds. If you've been enjoying this interview series and would like to help support what I'm doing, there's a couple ways you can do that. Number one, you can find the podcast on iTunes, rate us, and that really just helps other people to find out what I'm doing and helps others to hear these stories. The second way that you can help is that I do sell t-shirts directly through bigchangethefilm.com, which is a great way to directly impact what I'm doing, help support the film, help support the podcast. 100% of the profits from the t-shirt sales go directly towards the production of the film and the podcast. This week's guest is Sarah Goodenough, who lives in Rochester, New York. Sarah told me that in high school she struggled with anorexia and binge eating. At the age of 22, she was diagnosed with fatty liver disease. She told me she struggled with high blood pressure, anorexia, and depression. Since then, she's lost 160 pounds. Her health is better than ever, and she tells me she's now on a mission to help others get healthy. We have a fantastic conversation, and thanks so much for tuning in. I'm here with Sarah Goodenough. We got connected actually through Instagram, and she has lost an incredible amount of weight, has a great story. And so, Sarah, first off, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me, and maybe we could just start off with a little bit about yourself, where you live, and how much weight you have lost total.
All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this. What you're doing is awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
I am Sarah Goodenough. I'm from Rochester, New York, which is upstate New York. I am 30 years old. I'll be 31 next month. I've lost 160 pounds. A little bit about my background. I grew up here in Rochester. I moved to Boston for college, stayed there for a few years, moved back. I am a registered nurse. So I have a bachelor's in nursing. I worked in critical care for a few years. So I worked in a medical ICU. I worked in the emergency department for a little while. I did some home care for a while. So I was a visiting nurse. And then I actually went back to school at the University of Rochester for a post-bachelor's pre-med program because I was going to continue becoming a physician. That's originally what I was going to school for in Boston. And once I finished that program up, I decided that I was going to open a plant-based meal delivery company for whatever reason. It took off and I quit nursing not quite a year ago. Now I do the business full time, and we're opening a nutrition and coaching center. So like a lifestyle kind of coaching center in May, hopefully, is when we're launching. So yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, you know, you've lost 160 pounds. That doesn't happen overnight. You don't gain it. You don't lose it overnight. So, you know,
Right.
take me back. I think I saw that, you know, your health issues and whatnot started pretty early, but even to go back, you know, prior to that, childhood, like what did things look like for you growing up? Were you know, bigger as a kid?
Growing up, I wasn't. I kind of fluctuated. I've always been tall for a girl, so I'm 5'8.5" right now. So I was definitely bigger than, you know, most girls my age. Again, I kind of fluctuated, but I wasn't, you know, like super big or super small. I guess I was pretty average. It wasn't until I'd say the end of high school. I struggled, you know, with some eating issues growing up. There was a point in time in high school where I guess you could, I'm self-diagnosing myself, but I was a little anorexic where I went through a period of time where I didn't really eat that much. So I got really thin. And then right after that happened, I like kind of pulled myself out of it, I guess. And I went the opposite way and started binge eating. And that was around my senior year of high school. And a lot of that had to do with stressful things that were going on at the time. I had switched schools. You know, I had to make new friends. I was moving away. There was a lot of emotional stress, and I turned to food a lot to cope with it. And of course, you know, most of the time when you're turning to food for coping, it's not the healthiest stuff. So a lot of it was fast food. I remember gaining weight my senior year, and being like, okay, well, I noticed it, but I didn't really think much of it. Then I moved to Boston for college, and that's when it really became noticeable to me. I remember like getting my first stretch mark, like looking at my stomach and seeing like these red lines and being like, what is this? Like, what is going on? And I called my mom, and she's a nurse too. So, that was like the first of the stretch marks, and what they ended up all over myself. But that's when I started to gain the most weight, and I was gaining really rapidly. And I'm walking everywhere because I didn't have a car when I was in Boston. So I'm like, I don't understand. I'm exercising. So, but I was still gaining weight so quickly. They at one point thought maybe I had a thyroid issue or it was hormonal, but everything came back fine. So from there, I moved back to Rochester, and it was definitely like a terrifying experience, because when I moved to Boston, I was not nearly as heavy as when I moved back to Rochester. So I can't remember exactly what the difference was in weight by the time I moved back to Rochester. But at my heaviest, I was 309 pounds. And when I moved back here, I actually isolated myself completely from anybody that I knew before I had moved to Boston. So I wouldn't see friends, I wouldn't talk to people. Any pictures that were on MySpace was the big thing then, and Facebook was just kind of coming into the picture. But I remember I would only have pictures from here up, and I'd angle myself so that people that knew me before would still see me as what they thought I looked like before. And realistically, I'm much heavier. I want to say in high school, when I was going through the starving myself time, I was probably around 150 pounds, and here I am, fast forward 5 years later, and I'm 309 pounds. So that was definitely really stressful. But so that was what I was at my heaviest.
Yeah. And then, so at some point in there, you mentioned you went to school. I know you were a nurse. I think I saw an article you kind of talked about some of the struggles that you had, just in working day to day. Can you kind of, paint a picture of that? Give us an idea of what that looked like?
Yeah, I worked in critical care as a nurse, and in the ICU, you tend to see people that, young and old, but usually they're super sick, and most of the time it's a result of some type of lifestyle disease, whether it's, heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke, things like that. And, being heavy, I was working 12-hour shifts. And if you're working in critical care or even a step-down type unit, you're constantly going from one patient to the other patient to the other patient, because they're, critical in health. And I was on my feet all this time, and it was definitely a struggle for me. I had a lot of back problems, a lot of knee issues. And I remember a lot of times thinking to myself, as these people are getting healthier and going to the step down, which is where you go once you're getting a little better from a critical standpoint, I'm talking to these people about getting healthier and, talking to them about what they should be doing lifestyle wise. And I felt so fake doing it because it wasn't what I was practicing myself. And for me, I don't know about you, but I think for most people, it's really, if you don't believe in it because you're not doing it, it doesn't feel authentic, and it almost makes you feel more down about yourself, because you're like, yeah, this is what I should be doing too. And here I am telling somebody else to do something that I know I should be doing myself. And it was definitely a wake up. I think being a nurse actually helped a lot with pushing me to get healthier.
Yeah, and I think I saw in the article maybe that daily you would have to use steroids. You'd also have to use an inhaler. Is that right?
Yeah, so I had asthma pretty bad once I got heavier. It was not so much an issue when I was growing up, but when I got heavier, it became a huge issue. And I was on steroids all the time to manage the breathing issues. I had pneumonia. I don't even know how long it lasted. It felt like I had pneumonia for 2 years straight at one point, because I'd get better and then I would get sick and I'd be back on antibiotics. I'd be back on the steroids. I was using my albuterol inhaler. You're supposed to use it every 4 hours as needed. Or if you're having an asthma attack, I was using it almost every hour to 2 hours to help with the wheezing and the inflammation. So walking was a struggle, let alone going upstairs and things like that. So I was definitely in poor health. I at one point started getting these weird symptoms where I was really nauseous. I was vomiting. I couldn't keep anything down. Went to my physician. She ran some blood work. I left, and then I got a call shortly after saying we need to send you in for an emergency ultrasound because my liver enzymes were extremely elevated. And I'm 21 at this point. So she sent me in for the ultrasound. I was freaking out. She told me it could be my gallbladder, and I might need surgery for that. They did the ultrasound, and what she discovered was my gallbladder was okay. It was a little inflamed, but I had fatty liver disease, and it wasn't just like the beginning stages or anything like that. I mean, it was the beginning stages because it progresses if you don't do something about what you're eating, but it was full-blown like fatty liver disease. And I didn't know what that was at the time. You know, I'm going through nursing school and learning things, but I didn't really understand it. And what she said was fatty liver disease is something usually found in someone middle-aged or older. Generally, they don't know they have it until it's reached the point of cirrhosis or liver cancer. But because I had all these weird issues, I had elevated liver enzymes, I just happened to have this emergency ultrasound. They found it, before it could have become much worse. And she said the only reason somebody my age would have fatty liver disease is because of what I was eating and eating a high-fat diet, which was, pretty obvious at that point because I was 309 pounds. So that was a huge wake-up call for me too. And all of these things kind of happened like right around the same time. Like my asthma and the pneumonia was really bad, weird symptoms and headaches. I had migraines all the time, really low energy. I was really depressed, depression medications, anxiety medication. I had reflux really bad, so I was taking medication for that, and that exacerbated the asthma. So I had all these health issues at 21 years old that, somebody in their 50s after eating a standard American diet would have. But that's how extreme my binge eating was with, standard American diet foods.
And I'm just thinking, you're 21, 22. You told me that you kind of really started to put on weight, it sounds like when you were 17 or 18. So in theory, either you put on the damage or your body responded in a way that it had a kind of almost a lifetime of damage over like 3 or 4 years. Is that right?
Yeah, my parents they're very healthy. So growing up, I was very limited in what I could eat. So there was nothing really unhealthy in the house. My mom was even a vegetarian a couple times growing up, and she always cooked dinner for us. It was always really healthy, a lot of vegetables. I always wanted the McDonald's and things. And usually when my mom was at work and my dad was with us, we would like beg him for McDonald's or pizza, and he would get it because it's mom's not there and it's okay. So I didn't have, once I was out on my own and I had full control over what I could eat, I guess you could say I lost all control. I pretty much just like flew off the handle and ate everything in sight that was bad. I mean, I remember living in Boston, and as I was gaining weight, of course, my, depression, my anxiety, I was really self-conscious. So I didn't really make a lot of friends there. I focused a lot on my studies, and then I'd watch the Food Network all the time. That's actually where I started learning about the Food Network. And it was when Rachel Ray came out with her first show. So I'd sit there and watch these shows on the Food Network all the time. And I'd make my ramen noodles and grilled cheese sandwich and pretend I was eating what they were making on the Food Network. Cause poor college student, you don't really have a lot of options, but food was definitely, I was using it to cope with the pain that I felt from being so heavy and gaining this weight so quickly and not knowing what was going on with my body. So it was like a vicious cycle.
And then, I think you also had high blood pressure as well. Was that an indication? Yeah,
I did. So I have 2 sons. My oldest is 8. And when I was pregnant, so I had they call it pre-hypertensive is what my baseline blood pressure was before I was pregnant with him. But toward the end of my pregnancy with him, which by the way, I was losing weight while I was pregnant, which was not, I actually was terrified when I got pregnant because I'm like, oh my God, I'm already 300 pounds. Like, I can't imagine how much more, because you think you're going to gain weight when you're pregnant. So I started losing weight, I think because I stopped the partying and all that stuff. But toward the end of my pregnancy with Sammy, my 8-year-old, I was very hypertensive, and they ended up they called me and said, we need to get you into the hospital now. We're going to induce you. Your blood pressure is really high, and my lab work was really not good either. So I was preeclamptic at that point. And after I had him, I struggled with getting the blood pressure down. And that was when I started Weight Watchers. That's when I started basically my journey of trying every kind of diet that's out there. I did South Beach, Weight Watchers, Atkins, everything that's out there that you can think of. I probably tried it. So that started my journey of trying to lose weight. And nothing really helped the blood pressure. I lost, about 30 pounds when I was on Weight Watchers, but I mean, I quit that because who wants to count their points every time they have to eat something? Definitely not me. Nothing that I tried was sustainable. And, I did this for quite a few years, back and forth trying to figure out, and when I say quite a few years, I mean, from the time that I started gaining quite a bit of weight to where I am now, everything to me was just not sustainable. It was a diet. And at that time, I wasn't really, that familiar on nutrition. And I just knew that I wanted to be skinny and feel good about myself. And that was pretty much my main focus. And I think that's a lot of the problem with America and all of these diets is we tend to work from the outside in as opposed to the inside out. And, once I started to realize that, I actually picked up this book that I was a big fan of Gwyneth Paltrow, and she put on Twitter that she read this book and it changed her life. So I'm like, oh, I got to get that book. And it was all about weight loss. It's this book. It's about love and weight loss. I'm like, oh God, I got to read that. She's really skinny. And, and as I'm turning the pages and reading it, I'm learning it's not a weight loss book. It's actually a self-love book. And it talks about the mental aspect of, weight gain and what that means. And this entire book was about self-love and visualization and how powerful your thoughts are and how powerful your feelings and emotions are. And if you're constantly feeling, sorry for yourself, or you feel like, okay, well, I'm 300 pounds and I did this to myself and this is just the way that I'm going to be. That's the way that it's going to be. So this really helped me understand that, being overweight is not so much a food issue, it's a love issue. And it's something that really helped me. At the time, I had just read the China study. So read the China study, learned all this crazy stuff about how everything I've ever learned is wrong about food. And then I happened to pick this book up thinking oh, well, this might help me commit to this whole crazy lifestyle of going plant-based that I didn't think I'd be able to do. And I think it was perfect that I had read, it was fate, the way that I had read these books. And I also read this book about habit and how to, develop new habits and break old ones. Science has always been a huge interest to me. So I like to know the why behind a lot of things. And so these 3 books, I'd say, really changed my life. Those were pivotal moments in my life.
So you read the China study, for people who haven't, obviously it's fantastic. The information
Mm-hmm.
is world shaking, to say the least. Yeah. And kind of makes you look at everything differently. So what was your response to that? What did you start doing differently? Did you burn down your pantry, or did you clear everything out, or what were those next days? What were those next steps?
Yeah. Well, I remember reading it, and everything I was reading, I never at that point, I hated salad and vegetables and things like that. And the China study actually made salad and spinach sound enticing. So I remember feeling that. Like, I remember going into the kitchen and being like, I need to eat like a spinach salad. Like, oh my God, I need to eat like all the spinach in the world right now to like make up for all the stuff I've been eating for so long. And, as I'm reading it, I was Googling like T. Colin Campbell and Thomas Campbell to figure out if they were crooks, because they're telling me that dairy and meat are bad for me. Like, what? That's supposed to be like what makes you skinny and healthy and stuff. So I spent a lot of time like trying to prove this book wrong because I wanted it to be wrong. And that obviously didn't happen. So I just kept finding more information, more research. I read a lot of research articles. I've always been into reading research articles because that's like your unbiased information, depending on who is funding it. But it's unbiased information, and it's, scientists generally don't pick an opinion. They just want to like take a question and answer it in a scientific way. So that was something I could really believe. I started watching, Forks Over Knives. I watched at the time. I watched this. Actually, the first documentary I watched is one that people don't really talk a lot about. And I can't remember the exact name of it. I'll have to find out. But it was a girl that she was vegan herself. And she went around her city and found all these people that lived a standard American diet and challenged them to eat a vegan diet and lifestyle and see how they felt. And in this documentary, she called like all these different farms that said they were free range or organic or grass fed. And that was when I learned that those things are actually not any healthier. And the circumstances and the way that the animals are treated is not really much better either. So to me, that was kind of like an eye opener for a whole like vegan lifestyle and plant-based diet. Pretty much, actually, I remember the day that I watched that documentary. My husband came home with one of our favorite things to eat, which was an egg, cheese, and sausage breakfast bagel sandwich. And I had just like learned about processed meat and like red meat, and they showed like the process of making it. I'm like, I can't eat that like at all. And it wasn't so much egg and cheese that I was concerned about at the moment. It was the sausage. So I remember like telling him, well, maybe if I take the sausage off, it'll be okay. So I guess like the first steps for me were cutting out the processed meat, and then the red meat, which was hard for me because cheeseburgers were like everything to me at that point. And then, I waxed and waned a little bit. I lost a little bit of weight here and there. Again, I'm reading, I'm reading the Habit book at this time because I just dove into this whole, like, I've got to transform my life thing, like after reading the China study. And eventually I just decided to go all in and see how it went after I read the Habit book. I'm like, I'll just do something for 3 weeks and see if I hate it, then I could go back to what I was doing before. If not, then I'll stick with it. And after 3 weeks of doing that, I felt amazing. I lost weight. I had energy. My asthma was a little bit better. So I continued with it. And, the rest is history. I won't say that I did it perfectly up until now. I mean, nobody really does anything like this perfect, but I have definitely changed my entire lifestyle, and plant-based is the way to go. I never thought, for example, that I would, be able to exercise or run again. And I ran a half marathon last year, and I'm running another one again in May and a full marathon in September, which I'm a little nervous about, but I'm excited. So it's completely changed my life. And, the first couple of years were a struggle because back when I read this, there was nothing really out there except for Forks Over Knives. That was like the main plant-based documentary. I mean, there was like vegan documentaries. I didn't really watch any of like the crazy ones back then because, again, I was doing this more for health reasons when I started. So, I struggled a little bit, and I mean, I won't say a little bit, a lot at first. Within the first year or so, I lost around 100 pounds, or, give or take a bit. I didn't really work out. I didn't exercise. I focused on, changing my habits, developing these new habits, especially with the eating, learning how to cook like this, learning how to cook without oil, which was like crazy to me, and just eating right and doing this like from a sustainable, like at least mentally sustainable standpoint, not doing a diet, but changing my entire lifestyle. So I think giving myself that good solid year of just focusing on that was really helpful. I started exercising, a little after that, here and there. I didn't get into running until last year when my friend was like, hey, you want to do this half marathon? And I don't remember why, but I said, yeah. And that was when I got into running, and now I love running. So, which I can't believe, because I literally didn't think that it was possible for me to run. I had a lot of knee issues, back issues. So to me, like, even if I lost weight, I'm like, oh, I probably won't be running anytime soon. But plant-based life, I mean, it just changed everything. It really did.
Yeah, I can just imagine telling your former self as you're 300 pounds, taking your inhaler, saying, don't worry, you'll be running a marathon one day.
All right. That was another thing too. Like, my asthma was so bad. So any kind of physical activity, like, I'd start wheezing immediately. I didn't think that it would be possible for me to do anything really super athletic, especially cardio or endurance based.
Yeah, so, you kind of gave us a picture of your health before: fatty liver disease, high blood pressure. You talked about, being on medication for, I think, anxiety, depression, just all these things. Can you kind of give us an idea of your picture of health now, where you're at on medications, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I do not take a single medication now. Don't take anything for blood pressure. I do have an inhaler still for asthma. I usually take a puff of it before I run if I'm going to be running outside and it's like allergy season or something. So prophylactically, I'll use that. I don't take any depression medication. I don't take any anxiety medication. Definitely haven't taken steroids in a really long time, like since 300-pound days. So my life health-wise is completely different. My energy level is, people tend to look back to their 20s and be like, wow, those were the best years of my life. Well, I feel like these are like the best years of my life. Like, I am full of energy. I mean, I run, I work out. I love it. I love working out. I have more muscle now than I've ever had. Like, I'm in better shape right now than I ever have been. So, my life right now is just totally different. I did like a complete 180. It's like I'm essentially a new person, really.
That's awesome. And, just to back up a little bit, and you can, of course, say next question if you don't want to talk about it. But I think the mental thing is a big thing for a lot of people, because oftentimes I know in conversations I've had, and for myself, you as a bigger person, you spend so much time thinking about, how you're disappointing yourself, or what are other people thinking about me, or other people talking about me, or I don't fit in. Looking back, how did, whether it's the anxiety, the depression, whether it was losing the weight or what you were eating or kind of all of it, how did that change things for you in your mental state to get you to where you are today?
Well, I remember when I was reading this book Within that it talked a lot about visualization and changing your thoughts and beliefs about who you are right now and, where you're going. And, I kind of just like went out on a limb and I'm like, this is kind of crazy talk, but I'm just going to try it because I've tried everything else. So what do I have to lose? And it's an interactive book. So at the end of each chapter, there's something that you have to do that's related to what you just read. And at the end of one of the first chapters, it said, visualize yourself, like how you would look and how you would feel if you were feeling your best. And so I painted a picture in my head of what I wanted to look like and how I wanted to feel. And at the time, like, I remember thinking to myself, like, the style of skinny jeans and yoga pants was just becoming a thing. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, I really wish I could wear those things, but I would look ridiculous if I did right now. So I visualized myself wearing black yoga pants and, like a workout shirt and looking super athletic, because I always wanted to be athletic, but I just wasn't. And I pictured myself like feeling really energetic and, going to work out and feeling good about myself. And I just kept visualizing that. Like, I mean, I'm talking like I pictured down to like what color my shoes were and where I was standing in my bathroom at the time. Like I visualized myself standing in the bathroom looking at myself in the mirror. And I repeated that visualization over and over and over again in my head. And I also came to, learn that a lot of times, things like fear and anxiety and resentment come from living in the past or living in the future. And one thing that this taught me was just accepting like who you are right now, which is so hard to do when you're 300 pounds and you're so used to feeling like disappointed in yourself or, angry with yourself or resentful. And I kind of just like let it go. And this has definitely been, letting go back then and letting go now is like totally different because I've worked on this for so many years, but definitely working on being accepting of like, okay, well, I'm 300 pounds right now. This is what it is. Doesn't matter how I got here or, the food that I'm eating. It goes back to like how I'm feeling. And a lot of times us as humans, we're good at dissociating. It's just what our brains naturally do. So something traumatic happens to you or you feel a bad emotion and you immediately are doing something to like cover it up or sweep it under the rug or forget about it. And that's where addictions stem from. And I essentially had a food addiction at that time. So learning to take my emotions and feelings, like if I'm feeling angry about something and actually like figuring out where that's coming from and working on that, like that helped me so much with the mental struggles that I had at that time. And I've definitely perfected it through the years. And mindfulness was a big part of that, like learning how important that was. And one thing I would do all the time was just mindlessly eat potato chips or Doritos, like while I was watching television. And when you're mindful of it, you're like, oh God, how many Doritos did I just eat? Like 40, I think I just ate 45 Doritos. And that was like helping me realize like how mindlessly eating I was, like counting how many chips I was eating. And once you do that, you kind of, it's like an awakening almost, like a spiritual awakening of sorts. You're just like your eyes are wide open and you're no longer kind of masking the feelings and emotions that you have with something that makes you feel good temporarily. You're feeling them and you're working on them so that you can get to a point where that's resolved and, everything's okay for a moment.
Well, and I'm thinking, you're married, you have 2 kids. What has it been like, to go from the 45 Dorito eating person to, now eating this way and, choosing to put different, things in your body? Because it's hard enough to change what you're eating for yourself, but whenever you have other people who are either dependent on you or at least eating with you, what has that process been like for you in the last, 10 or so years?
That's definitely been hard. It's been a struggle. My husband was, also, we met each other at that 300-pound point. And what we did was we partied and we drank and we ate McDonald's and ate pizza and watched movies and, very inactive lifestyle. So when I started going through this, he was pretty supportive. He watched some of the documentaries with me and, he would try a lot of the things that I would cook. Some were better than others, but he was very open to trying things. Once I had my first son, Sammy, he was not, we weren't 100% plant-based at that time. So, he was definitely, it was a struggle to get him to where he was eating more plant-based things. But I also wasn't educated enough at the time to understand that it was okay and it was safe for kids too. So you kind of get in this mindset that like, it's important to like eat healthy when you're older, but nobody really thinks about that for kids. You just give them something quick and easy. And really it should be the other way around. Like you should be teaching them healthy eating habits at a young age, especially because that's when they're developing and brain development happens, within the first 3 years. So we have it kind of like backwards, I guess. And, once I started introducing things to him, I would talk to his pediatrician, who was very supportive. She was actually primarily plant-based at the time too. And, she would tell me, like, you just got to give him something, 10 times, like have him try the broccoli 10 times. He'll eventually like it. And it's true. I've witnessed it firsthand. It's a struggle because you're forcing your child. It feels terrible because you're like forcing them to eat something and they don't want to eat it. But it grows on them and their taste buds change, and, that happens. I definitely dealt with a lot of negative feedback from, like family and friends in the beginning, because they're like, well, he needs to have milk, cow's milk, and he needs this to grow and that to grow, and what you're doing is not healthy for kids and things like that. So it was a struggle to like tune all of that out, but I knew what I knew, and I was doing my own research, and so what they were saying didn't really matter too much at the time.
Yeah, it's crazy that you could know what you know and that you lost 160 pounds, but still people are telling you like, no, they need the stuff that
Right.
you ate to get to 300 pounds.
Right.
You said also in there, you didn't like vegetables, like you didn't like some of those things. So, now today, and I'd love for you to talk about it a little bit too, but you have a business based on making these kinds of foods for other people. So how did things develop for you in terms of, because for a lot of people, cooking food, especially if you live in a place where there aren't a lot of restaurants, there aren't a lot of things that kind of cater to the way of eating this way. It's hard, maybe if you don't have a spouse who's on board, or you live by yourself, or you do have kids. How did you tackle re-teaching yourself, or just teaching yourself period, how to cook and how to prepare the food that you knew was right for you and your body?
Yeah, I've always loved cooking. And I used to have people over for dinner all the time, of course, cooking things like Alfredo and, lasagna, but not the plant-based kind. So cooking this food was something that I struggled with at first, because to me, like, I loved making things that tasted great, and people would always like compliment, like, wow, this tastes amazing. And how am I going to make something taste amazing without using cheese or butter or oil? Because those were like my three main ingredients I used. So I bought a lot of cookbooks, and I tried a lot of recipes, and I didn't like a lot of them. And for me, that was tough. There's a lot of things that Sean didn't like either. I ended up eating salads and rice for a long time. And then I started teaching myself the techniques. So once you learn the basic technique of, how to do something, you can pretty much do anything with it. So I learned, what binders work in replacement of eggs and which ones are best for particular recipes. Like a recipe with baking soda would be better with, a quarter cup of tofu instead of an egg, or, how to saute and caramelize things without the oil, because that was the flavors that I was missing, were like the things you get from cooking with oil. So once I learned the techniques, I would take recipes that were not plant-based or vegan and veganize them, essentially. So once I did that, it was much easier to transition, because I would make things like burgers and meatloaf, but instead of lentil loaf, and pizzas even without oil or cheese. And so things that you're familiar with in the standard American diet, but just plant-basify them, I guess you could say. And, when I was doing this, I'm like, and learning all about this, I was like, oh my God, like this could save so many people's lives. And I'm in healthcare, I've always wanted to dedicate my life to serving other people in a health sense. So, and I was always very passionate about it. So when I learned all of this stuff, I'm like, oh my God, this could change the world. Like it could literally change everything about the world, everything about our healthcare system. But I'm thinking to myself, like, it's going to be too hard for most people to do. And most people are going to feel like they can't do it. And that's when Kitchen Verde came up. And actually, it started with my friend that was a bodybuilder. He started having symptoms of high blood pressure. sure enough, I took his blood pressure for a week straight, and he was like stage 3 hypertensive, so like in the 180s over, 90 to 100. So he was eating steak and chicken and massive amounts of eggs because that's what bodybuilders generally do. And he was terrified of losing his muscle mass if he went on this diet, but he had also witnessed and seen my complete transformation. So he trusted me. And I told him, let me prepare your food for you. I'll do a meal plan. I'll show you how many calories, how much protein's in it. Just trust me and do it. So he did it for 3 weeks, and his blood pressure went back to normal. And he was pretty much sold on it. And he was like, you should really do this for other people. And the food is really good. Like nobody would ever think. So I didn't really think much of it. And at the time I was a visiting nurse. So I just decided to ask my cousin, who's a good friend of mine too, would you be willing to try this? And if you happen to lose weight on it, maybe share it on social media or something and see where it goes. And she ended up losing pounds and putting it on her Facebook and social media. And then friends started wanting, some meal prep. And I'm doing this out of my kitchen and working full time during the week. And I've got 2 kids at the time. So it was crazy, but people were trying it. And I thought to myself, this is kind of a great way to get plant-based out there without having to convince people that this is healthy and that this is okay. I don't have to fight the arguments and, oh, I could never do that. I'm just going to give them the food and make them try it and see that this is this tastes good and it's not as weird and, gross as you might think it is eating vegetables. So to me, the easiest way to put this out there and get the most people to understand that a plant-based diet is amazing and it can be delicious and it's not just eating beans and lettuce all the time, was to actually make the food and make a product that people would just go out there and try. And it's definitely worked.
And so give me kind of an entire scope of what it is that you do now and the areas that you serve. And, if people are hearing this and happen to live, close enough to you, or maybe for those who aren't close, what all, kind of does Kitchen Birdie do now?
So we do, we have a menu online. It changes every week, and we have breakfast, lunch, dinner. We have snacks, juices. We have kombucha on there even. We have a dessert every week too. So it's basically everything. I incorporate everything that you would normally eat in your lifestyle. So we have black bean brownies and, apple pie and apple spice cake and, things that are delicious because this is not a restrictive lifestyle. So I want people to understand, you can still have the sweets and you can have, your burgers and things like that. And there's such a wide variety. So that was something when I started Kitchen Birdie, I wanted there to be a wide variety of choices because I want people to understand, this is not, you don't have to eat the same thing all the time. And that's a lot of times with the meal delivery services, you're eating the same thing all the time. It's chicken, it's rice, it's broccoli. This was more exciting and we use different spices than you're used to and everything's really flavorful. So you go on our website, you can order, one meal, you can order however meals you want. There's no subscription or commitment or anything. And we make all of the food fresh and we deliver it. We're in all of Monroe County right now, which is Rochester, for delivery. And we also have a pickup option every Sunday. So we do have people that come in from Buffalo and places around Rochester that will come in and get food from us. And then we also go out to the Sands Cancer Center, which is in Canandaigua, near us too. So we're working on expanding, but right now I'm just more focused on making Rochester as healthy as I can. I love my community. I love our city, and we're so lucky to have so many awesome resources here. We have a vegan community center. We have Rochester Lifestyle Medicine. We have, nutrition and medicine. We have Dr. Tom Campbell, who is the co-author of the China study. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And to me, working on the community and then going from there is really, the focus. But what I do for people that live outside of Rochester is I put recipes up. I give out our recipes, even, the recipes we use for meal delivery and catering. A lot of times in the business world, like, they're like, no, that's proprietary information. Like, don't give that out. But my mission with this was never to start a business and, make a bunch of money and, sell it or whatever. My goal and mission was to make as many people as I can healthy, and make as many people as I can understand that this is a lifestyle. It's not a diet. And here, try this. It's like actually good. So, I teach I've done cooking demos for free, and I give out recipes whenever I can. I put recipes on our blog. We have customers all the time that are like, hey, can I get that black bean brownie recipe? And I'm like, sure, here it is. So I'm not like I guess I wouldn't be like the best business owner, because, you're supposed to like save that stuff and, oh, you come and eat my black bean brownie that I make for you. But I'm all about, teaching people the skills that they need to implement this in their life. Because, I mean, when you learn about like how incredibly amazing this lifestyle is, not just for yourself, but for the world as a whole, I mean, it would be complete. I feel like it's almost my, obligation as just a human being to give as much as I can and show as much as I can from what I've learned and experienced. So I'm just, here it is. I did a first oil-free cooking class, an interactive one on Tuesday, and it was great. I mean, people had so many amazing questions, and, we were teaching them techniques, and they got to get hands-on with it and learn the techniques themselves. And then they ate it and, got to see that, wow, it tastes really good too. So I'm just having a blast doing what I love and taking my passion for health and wellness and my experience doing it, and just living it and bringing it into the lives of other people. Like, it doesn't get any better than that for me.
That's all incredible. So, you were talking, you mentioned, being 300 pounds, looking in the mirror, imagining yourself in the yoga pants and the Q-top and the shoes and everything else. And, now you're a half marathoner. You'll be a marathoner soon. You're in the gym all the time. People can see your picture, like you're a fit person. What do you, when you look at yourself in the mirror now, or you think about that and you've spent so much time visualizing, like, what comes to mind for you now when you think about the fact that you actually are there?
I guess like when I really think about it, it's, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. And, when I was running my half marathon last year, like I get choked up every time I talk about this. You think that it would get better by now. But, I was running the half marathon last year, and I remember at mile 9, my girlfriends were standing there with signs, and my kids were standing there with a sign. And I just like, I passed them and I'm like, oh my God, that's so great. Hey. And as I got to like the last 4 miles of the run, when you really have to dig deep, those last couple of miles. And it's just like, I was really digging deep. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I can make it. My legs were seizing up. I was dying of thirst. Because we're running by a lake. It was in Canandaigua. I was running by a lake, and I'm like, I just wish that I could skim the top of that lake and like take in all the water. And as I'm doing this, like digging deep to like pull this last bit of energy out of myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, Sarah, like you were 300 pounds and so unhealthy. You couldn't even make it off the couch barely. And here you are running 13.1 miles, and you're like on the last couple miles. And I just like burst into tears. So I'm like running and like crying at the same time. And just, that was like, I don't know, the feeling, I can't even describe it. It was just like an amazing feeling. Like I was proud of myself. Like I turned part of my journey in keeping myself focused on the days when I didn't want to get out of bed, because there were plenty of those days. What I would do in Pinterest or like, Google quotes and motivational or inspirational stories by different people. And for me, like at that moment to get through those last few miles, like I used myself as inspiration. And that to me is like, it's amazing. It really is. Sometimes I have to like pinch myself when I think about it. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. It's like a whole life transformation.
Yeah, and I think that's great too for people who are maybe hearing this, who are at the beginning of the journey. They're still, struggling where they're at. They're still 10 pounds overweight, 200 pounds overweight, 300 pounds overweight, to know that because I mean, I had a similar situation the first time I did my, post marathon, however many mile run that was over, it was a little bit over a half marathon. And I remember getting emotional, thinking about the journey. And for people who are out there who are still in the ditches, still slogging through whatever, that like you will get to a point that you realize, not that you've arrived, but that the journey's been worth it, and that you can be proud of yourself, and that you are that inspiration now. So it's incredible that you have a tangible example of that. Looking in the rearview mirror, what about this journey has surprised you, that you maybe didn't think would be possible, or you didn't think you'd be where you were?
I guess the whole like sustaining it. I went through a big time where I was really fearful of falling off the bandwagon because before that, that's what I did. I would do something for a little while and then I would be over it. And getting past that point and realizing like this is my new life, this is my new lifestyle, and this is how I do things now. Like, and letting go of what the old me did. That was definitely like a huge, awesome, like to do. And then also, no, long journey, and it's always going to be up and down and up and down. And that's like understanding that and understanding and learning that when I have those downs, fighting through those downs instead of using my old coping mechanisms. That also is something that I was afraid of, like I was always afraid that when I had those down moments that I was going to go back to my ways of coping with, external things. And, when it wasn't food, it was alcohol at one point, like I was binge drinking, and you're young and you think that that's okay. And, I was basically going from one addiction to the next addiction. So, that was definitely something that I thought, oh my gosh, I hope that when I don't have a bad time, or when I do have a bad time, that I'm not going to go back to, coping with bad things. And that's been huge, and that makes you feel like really proud of yourself. It takes so much work. It does, but it gets easier. Like you get conditioned, and it definitely gets easier every time. But it's not easy at first, and you have to just accept that it's not going to be easy at first. But I remember telling myself, like, I think if I do this more and I keep implementing better habits instead of going to the bad ones, like I think it might get easier. And I remember telling myself that. And then, I mean, I guess like one day you wake up and you realize you've been doing it for quite a few years now. So yeah, I guess that's true. So that helps with a lot of, customers that we have and clients that I have that come to me and they're like, this is so crazy. This is like insane. Why am I even doing this? And how am I going to stick with this? And I use a lot of my experiences too. And then I also use a lot of quotes from physicians like Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. His one quote about, this plant-based diet lifestyle is absolutely crazy. And he says, well, I think it's, more crazy to take a vein out of your leg and put it into your heart after they crack your chest open. And, it's like perspective is everything. I mean, change when you say something like that to someone, they're like, oh, yeah, yes, that is really crazy. But who would do that? Well, like most of America who gets a bypass surgery, that's what bypass is. And they're like, oh, yeah. So I guess eating plants is not quite as extreme as that. But we've been so conditioned for so long to think that certain things are just supposed to be. And when you step out of like that world of this is how things are supposed to be, and you kind of look at it from a different perspective, it just opens your eyes so much more. And you realize so many of the things we've been doing are just because people tell us that this is what we should be doing. But you don't have to live a life that follows in that trajectory that people think it has to follow. Like live your own life, make your own decisions, do your own, learning, and educate yourself and stay up to date on like nutrition and whatever it is, like you don't have to follow this path that everyone else follows. And that's been huge for me.
Yeah, well, as you were talking, you're talking about difficulty, and there was a quote. I think it's something along the lines of I never said it was going to be easy. I just said it was going to be worth it. And it's kind of like it's hard. It's hard whenever you don't like vegetables, and then now all of a
Yeah,
sudden all you eat is vegetables. Like that's not an easy place to come from and get to. But obviously, for you, it's been worth it. Um,
definitely.
what would you say to somebody who's at the beginning of this journey who is trying to turn things around? Whether it's trying to lose weight or they're facing a medical issue. What would you tell somebody? And I'm sure you have these conversations often on day one.
Yeah. Well, day one, most of the time I hear from people, this is crazy, this is too hard. Um, what can I have on my cheat day? Like things like that. And a lot of times, you're dealing with emotions. Like these are, people think that weight gain and being overweight and all these health issues because of the food they're eating is, again, like a food issue, but it's really like it's a love issue, it's an emotion issue. And a lot of times I show people some tough love, and I'm a very like caring, I'm talking about myself, I'm very caring, but I am like, I care a lot about other human beings. That's why I've dedicated my life to serving people in this way. And for them to hear me say something like, listen, let go of the past, let go of those things that happen to you. Like, yes, you experience them, like acknowledge that they happened to you, acknowledge the emotions and feelings they bring onto you, but don't let it really rule your life, because you're just going to sit there and feel sorry for yourself. And when you're feeling sorry for yourself, you're never going to get anywhere. So just let it go. Let go of like, this is crazy, I don't know if I should be doing this. Read the books, read the articles, like watch the documentaries, do whatever you have to do to keep yourself motivated and focused. I mean, I was constantly, if you go on my phone, I think I have like 10,000 pictures of screenshots of quotes. I mean, I did whatever I had to like get myself out of bed in the morning and get myself to stick with things. And a lot of times that was reading, how bad meat is for you and what it does to your body and how it rots in your stomach, like like things like that would be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to get up, I'm going to eat my oatmeal, and I'm going to move on with my day. So a lot of it is taking responsibility for your life and where it's going. And once people understand that all of the power to be what they want to be is within them, once they understand that it's there, which sometimes it takes a little while to understand, but once you do, like, your possibilities are endless. It's limitless. So I do a lot to try and bring people to the power that they hold within them. And, once you find that, like, you can do anything, like decide to run a half marathon, like 2 months before it. It's all about like your mindset and the strength that you have within yourself, whether you think you do at the time or don't. Sometimes you just need someone to kind of guide you in that direction. So that was a really long answer to that question, but
No, it's all great. If you have a conversation with your 22-year-old self, who was a lot bigger, who had fatty liver disease and everything else going on, and you could say some kind words or sometimes not so kind words to that person, what would that be?
well, I would tell myself that, you know, it's not about what you look like on the outside. Like, stop focusing on, getting skinny and looking like really awesome. Focus on, like, go to the core of the issue. And basically, like, I would tell myself to let go of like all of the hurt and the emotional pain and, just move forward, and it's going to be okay. Like, you're going to be able to do this. It seems impossible right now, but just do it every single day. Just wake up and do it every single day and don't think about it. And eventually you'll be 8 years down the road and you'll be looking back 160 pounds lighter, feeling great about yourself, feeling energetic, no more health issues. And you'll be wondering how the hell you got there. But it's just letting go of like, this is, I need to be like this, or I need to look like this. It's more like, just get up and do it and don't think about it. too much. You have to think about it a little, but not too much.
Yeah, that's great. And then, if people are hearing what you're saying, they want to try and keep up with you or connect with you, they want to try and find that blog with a recipe, what is the best way for people to catch up with you?
Well, I post a lot to our social media pages. So Kitchen Birdie on Facebook and Instagram. And then on my personal Instagram, which is just Sarah Goodenough, I post recipes on there, pictures of some of our food. And then if you go to our website, www.kitchen-birdie.com, and go to the blog section, that's usually where I'll post recipes. And I'm in the process of writing a couple articles about plant-based nutrition and comparing it to some of the other more popular diets out there. And this has, I'm going to put statistics in there and just to educate some more people. I mean, people think like this is so high carb, like I can't do this, I need lower carbs, and educating people on why like this is, your body needs carbs and what your body does with them. And, a lot of times people are constantly asking you like, why do we have all this autoimmune disease and all this heart disease that we didn't have years ago? Well, it comes down to the microbiology of our bodies and how they function. And we have trillions of microorganisms in our bodies, and they eat carbohydrates. That's what they eat to thrive. So whole food fiber. And when they don't get enough of that, they start eating away at the lining of our intestines, which is made from complex carbohydrates. And then all of these problems with inflammation as the basis start. And all of the primary diseases in America have a basis of inflammation. So educating people on that is like really huge too. And that's what a lot of the series of articles that I'm writing right now is on. Science and research, like I said, have always been a big passion of mine. So I've been reading a lot with microbiology and how that works, because once again, I wanted to understand how, like, why did my depression and anxiety go away? Like that's weird. Like, who thinks that your food has anything to do with that? Well, when you learn about how your microorganisms control just about every aspect of your body and every function of your body, it makes sense. I finally got the answer when I did enough research. So I want everyone else to understand that too, and realize that like what you put in your body is what you get out, essentially.
Awesome. Well, I'll include links to everything. And Sarah, congratulations again on the incredible transformation. I look forward to keeping up with all the awesome stuff you guys have going on, and hopefully I'll get a chance to get some of y'all's food at some point when I'm in New York.
Yeah, I'll just send you some so you can try them.
That'd be amazing. Well, thanks again, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.